Hello and welcome to And Still We Rise. I am your host, Christine Seidel, and today I have our guest, Kristen Heck. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you.
Yeah, lovely to have you. To get started, I would love to just read a little bit of your bio, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Kristen Heck is a licensed clinical psychologist turned certified health coach and fitness instructor based in Beaufort, Georgia. With over a decade of experience specializing in women's health, body image, and eating disorders in clinical and treatment settings, she now empowers women, especially those in midlife, with a unique blend of mental health and sustainable fitness and nutrition strategies. After transitioning into private coaching, Kristen created Healthy as Heck, a holistic lifestyle brand offering personalized health programs, menopause-focused coaching, and private yoga sessions. Her credentials include a PsyD in clinical psychology, a certified health coach, certified menopause coaching specialist, precision nutrition level 1, and she's a 200-hour registered yoga instructor. Driven by her passion of seeing women feel strong, balanced, and confident, Kristen blends evidence-based mindset work with physical training to support long-term well-being, and she offers both virtual and in-person coaching sessions. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Long list of achievements. My goodness.
I've been busy.
You have been busy. You have been busy. And I have to say, to our listeners and to our viewers, I've known Kristen for several years, and I always find her to be just like a wealth of knowledge. Even before this recording, I'm coming to her being like, "Girl, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that. What's going on with me?" So
We've had
I'm
lots of
excited to have her
conversations
on
like
today.
that. They go both ways.
They absolutely, yeah, for all of us and everything we talk about, for sure.
Yeah.
So I know today, we would love to have you back because you have such a wide knowledge and understanding of a lot of the things, especially like midlife transitions. And so, we'll have you back over a period of time. But today, we're talking about a conversation, a topic that I think can resonate with all of us, and that is the topic of reinventing yourself. So, to kick it off, what does that actually mean?
Good questions. I think it's different for different people. But when I look at people who are sort of reinventing themselves, I see it as bigger than just deciding you're going to make a change, like a job change, or you're going to change your hair or something like that. Reinventing yourself to me is a fundamental shift in how you see yourself, how you live your life, how you look at your goals, all those little daily habits. I think there's just a massive shifting of all of that, which is a little bit deeper than just the small shifts that we make every now and then. So that's how I look at it. I just think it's a deeper change in who you are and how you operate in the world.
Right. So maybe like a deeper resonance of making a shift or making a
Yes.
change.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in your experience, how would you say these drives or these desires come about for reinvention?
I think they're different for everybody. I think sometimes there's an external cause to it. I think sometimes losing jobs or having babies or getting married or leaving a marriage or relationship changes in general, I think all those things can cause us to step back and reevaluate a little bit. But I also
Yeah.
think sometimes, I don't have a better way of saying this, but I think sometimes we just get sick of ourselves. Like we get sick of our own stories, we get sick of our own excuses, we get sick of living in ways that don't feel like they align. And I think after a while of living that way, we all sort of have this moment where we stop and start to ask ourselves, is this what it's going to look like for the rest of my life? And if the answer isn't one that makes you excited, I think sometimes we start to feel like we have to make a bigger change than what we've been doing, if that makes sense, or do it differently, maybe.
Yeah, and I feel like, culturally we kind of have this identifier of like midlife crisis and, everybody is like, oh, as I enter my 40s, am I going to like, what am I going to implode at this point? But I think what you're saying is like, this is this deeper level resonance that we're kind of reflecting what and how we're showing up in life to see if that really is authentic to us. And I think that there's probably so many different times and markers in our life that we kind of do that maybe subconsciously. But I
Mm-hmm.
think what you're talking about is really being conscious of something here. I'm ready to shift and change into alignment of what's really
Yeah.
me, myself, rather than I'm feeling, like, I'm questioning things and now I'm going to go and implode my life and see what sticks and see
Yeah.
see what doesn't, with that kind of um traditional or cultural belief of like a midlife crisis or whatever. So, and I think
Yeah.
that can be anything from like people, especially coming out of like childhood and being, in their parents' care, then start realizing, I don't know if
Mm.
this like belief really aligns with me. So let me go
Yeah.
seek something else. Or, even I think as women will like, I think the funny meme is like, you can always tell when a woman's about to go through a breakup because her hair changes drastically,
Yeah.
so, but I think what we're going to talk about today is that feeling of stuckness where you're kind of reflecting where you are to your authenticity and your own
Hmm.
alignment, and really
Yeah.
making this conscious change or conscious decision to make that change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think we talk about it a lot in midlife, but I don't think it's really primarily a midlife thing. I mean, if I look back at pivotal moments in my life, they actually weren't midlife.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's where I am now. And
Yeah.
I think there were several of those moments getting here. I actually
Mhm.
feel like midlife for some of us, and I know it's not true across the board, but some of us, I think for midlife is actually a settling in a little bit of like, oh,
Mhm.
I know who I am now. So I think it can happen at different
Yeah.
times of life.
Yeah. So, like from your experience, where do you see people tend to get stuck, and how do you kind of start working with them through those blocks?
There's a lot of those places.
Yeah.
um, Personally, I know a sticky point for me was always feeling like if I make a change, I failed.
Hmm.
So I think
Hmm.
that, or like whatever I'm leaving behind was a failure on some level. So I think people are very afraid of failure or of being seen as like they failed, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So I think that's a sticking point. I think in general, expectations of the people that are around us are very important, not
Yeah.
letting people down or for women, I think struggle with this a little bit more of not disappointing people.
Hmm.
I think those can be really big sticking points. Um,
Yeah.
and I think our own let me think about how I want to say this. Our own definition of who we are can be a sticking point
Hmm.
of like getting out of that box for ourselves. Um, and honestly, a lot of that work, which you will be very familiar with, um, comes
Yeah.
back to a lot
Yes.
of like cognitive retraining, of going
Hmm.
back and looking at
Hmm.
our self-talk, our internal like dearly held beliefs, like what are those? And
Hmm.
are those accurate? Can we shift those? Can we question those? Can we look at those differently? And I think once
Hmm.
that world opens up, the world's a little bit your oyster. When you
Yeah.
can
I
look at
think,
that.
yeah. Well, and I think that's a great point, is oftentimes that kind of like desire, that percolating of like something isn't aligned here, really is this drawing our attention to what maybe have we taken on that we believed was ours, but may have been our conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
or a belief system from childhood that was maybe projected upon us.
A hundred.
Or we start kind of grappling in that stuckness of like, yes, but this is what I should want to do, or this is what I told, I've been told. So it kind of is like this like external like image versus this internal kind of desire. And so I think that is, when I work with either treatment resistant or people who even somatically, they're like, something's coming up in my body, whether it's panic or,
Hmm.
some chronic pain. It's like this drawing of their attention to something that maybe they haven't really been consciously,
Oh yeah.
you know, really aware of the cognitive belief systems or the mindset that they've been running on that really isn't aligned with their authentic true self.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you begin like working with that mindset with clients to shift that?
I always feel like no matter what you do, awareness is always your first step, right? So I feel like, and I'm sure you see this all the time too, we all we all run around all day operating under this chatter that's happening in
Yes.
our brains,
Yeah.
and we don't even know what's happening.
Hmm.
It's just
Hmm.
so automatic and it's just there all the time, and we're not aware of what's even happening in our thoughts
Yeah.
all day long. So
Hmm.
I really feel like some of the biggest shifts that I've seen in clients often happen just like this. Like we just happen to be
Hmm.
talking about something and I'll
Mm.
catch something that somebody says and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait. And
Hmm.
just that
Hmm.
mirroring and hearing it back and they're like, well,
Yeah.
wait a minute, that's not
Hmm.
how I realized I even looked at something. Like that awareness can be such a big shift into looking at life differently because you didn't even realize you were walking around holding onto
Yeah.
this belief.
Yeah, I think that's where it starts. Is that I mean, that's a big, catalyst to the work I do with clients. Is like being in a place that can pick up your patterns that you are so unaware of in having conversations, where you aren't fully conscious of the things you're saying, but somebody has been trained to pick up on those
Mm-hmm.
subconscious patterns and belief systems that you just are operating on every single
Yeah.
day. And that's why I think it is really important to, as you kind of come to this process and work with a professional, if you're going to the same, people that have maybe been a part of that conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
or they find connection with you in that
Mm-hmm.
condition, they're not going to be able to pick up on those patterns because those patterns are actually things that they operate under too. So it
Yeah.
is really important when you are feeling that desire to be in a place that can pick up on the pattern and then mirror that back to you for what it
Mm-hmm.
actually is, a distortion. So I think that's a very important step.
Yeah. And it's tricky, like having people around you that can validate how you feel is wonderful. Right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
having someone that's like, I get it, I feel that way too. Those are great things and those are great people to have in your corner. I
yeah.
always my friends, I laugh a little bit because I kind of know who to go to for what, right? Like I have those friends that
Yes.
are super
Right,
like,
exactly.
oh my
Yeah.
God, I totally get it, and who will just meet me where I am
Yeah.
and, love me through it. And then I also have friends that I know when I need to like have a bit of a kick in the butt, like those are the people I need to call because they're going to be like, oh my kick, you got to stop.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly.
you got to
They're like,
stop.
let me tell
Like,
you what I'm hearing.
yeah, like you're in your head, you're this, you're that, but that mirroring of, I'm going to give this back to you and we're going to talk about how that does not fit who you are or where you're
Hmm.
going on any level. And let's have a real conversation about that. So I think both things are so important. And
Yeah,
you're right. I think sometimes we get a little bit comfortable being around people who only do the validating part because having
yeah,
people mirror back something else is uncomfortable. Right. And now we've got to do the work.
yeah,
And that's scary.
yeah. Because once
Yeah.
you see it for what it actually is, like once you see it for its reality, it is really hard to kind of put it back into the box and
Yeah.
be like,
Sure is.
you get back in there, right? Because I always tell people, like, I mean, you can like look at it now or you can look at it later, but that box is going to be opened up. And I think you're right. You need both. You need a place where, they're trained to pick up on what is subconsciously being kind of operating your life, and then also the people that, validate your feelings and are part of your support system. Like both of those are important and needed
Yeah.
so that you feel one, supported in the change that you want to make, and two, that there's a lot of clarity in what that change
Yeah.
is from your own authority and your own
Yeah.
authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so knowing that, like shifting that mindset and like seeing it for what it actually is, and from the therapeutic model, we say, oftentimes that's reality distortion, or it's a cognitive distortion. And it really is about shifting it back into what's going to really kind of propel you to the change that you want. But like you said, sometimes people are kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to see that, or I don't know if I'm ready to make that change. So
Yeah.
how do you support clients that maybe feel like, resistant to that change? Maybe they feel like it's too late, or, it's going to disrupt other, relationships, or they're afraid of like even putting themselves out there. So there's a little bit of that like avoidance as a defense mechanism. Like
Mm-hmm.
how do you support clients through that?
I mean, I think we all make change at our own time, right? So
Mhm.
I think if someone's not ready to make a change, that's okay. Like we don't,
Yeah.
there is no timeline. And I do think people get very worried about that. I've been worried about that at different points in
Mhm.
my life, that it's too late to do something. I'm a firm believer, and I have to come back and remind myself of this over and over again, that if we are here and we are still living and breathing and doing, that we're not late. I mean,
Mhm.
there's still life to be lived. So we can make changes at any point. Um, but I also think that if we're not ready, then maybe there's a reason we're not ready, right? So there's something
Right.
that
Yeah.
we still need to do some work on, or there's maybe some restructuring in our support system or in the way our life works that needs to happen to open up the space for that change to happen. And that may
Mhm.
not be something that can change right now. I
Yeah.
mean, for me, if I think about it as a mom, there are changes that maybe I would like to make that just aren't going to happen right in this moment because it's summer
Yeah.
and my
Yeah.
kids are home and there's just a lot going on. So maybe if right now I was thinking about making a massive change, today might not be the day, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But like we can still
Mhm.
talk about it and prep for it and talk about the pros and cons and problem solve. And then at some point, when I
Yeah.
know this is the time, then we can make that change, right? I
Yeah.
think the danger, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because I think we can also say it's not the right time forever. So
Correct.
that's
Yeah. That's avoidance.
right. So like there's also a point, right, when hopefully someone around you or you have to look at yourself and be like, it's never going to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Mhm.
stars are never going to align at exactly the right place. Like sometimes we just need to step out of it and do it. And that's
Mhm.
tough, and that requires some bravery, which
Mhm.
can be challenging. And that's another place to talk through and work on.
Right. Examine that. Yeah. And I think that, it's important for, the listeners and the viewers to understand, like, if you're in a place of stuckness and you're going to see a professional to kind of work through this feeling of stuckness, like if they are, a really, solid practitioner, they don't have skin in the game of your change. They're just there to
Mm-hmm.
be this place of reflection for you and to support you when you're ready. Like you said, if there's a place where, change is really like hard, but you still desire it, there's something there that is ready to grow and to be curated into knowledge, but it might take more time. I know for myself, like when I have felt really stuck in something, I feel like I'm at this threshold where it's like, this is where I am and this is where I want to be. What I've experienced is oftentimes that feeling of stuckness is really the space where I'm gaining more clarity on
Mm-hmm.
what direction I go, because just like,
Mm-hmm.
one side of the spectrum, you can be avoidant. On the other side of the spectrum, you could be chaotically changing. And like,
Yes.
I,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go in this direction, and then now I'm gonna, and I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be an influencer, and now, nope, now I'm gonna be a intuitive healer, and like you can have this like kind of almost trial and error through change,
Mm-hmm.
and that's actually the opposite of like avoidance. It's this chaotic,
Mm-hmm.
trying on different things to see what sticks because you're actually not listening and stilling yourself enough to learn through that stuckness. It's like, oh, I hate the feeling of being stuck. So let me
Yeah.
just go out there and do stuff so that I can see what feels right versus let me stay in this threshold to gain more wisdom around it. And that's something
Yeah.
I've kind of own experience is to like when that feeling of stuck is there, be in the spaces to hear what maybe that old story is or that old mindset that needs to kind of be re-examined so that the true authentic mindset, the true authentic self will be what steps through it. So I
Yeah.
think that's an important distinction, and that going to places with professionals, hopefully they're not pressuring you to do that change now. That shouldn't be happening in those spaces, but I know in some places it can, but knowing that, as practitioners, we don't have these timelines for our clients. We're just there to be a reflected space of what it is that we're hearing in terms of those
Yeah.
patterns.
You reminded
Mhm.
me of a passage that I read sometimes at the end of a yoga class, and I don't remember the whole thing, but there's a piece in it that says, as many times as I catch myself barreling forward without even knowing where I'm going, that many times I can stop and breathe and recenter, and tap into
Mm,
wisdom, is essentially where it goes.
yeah.
But um, when you were talking about it, it brought me back to the place where I feel like a lot of people skip because again it's hard and it's uncomfortable, but that
Mhm,
mindfulness piece of like stepping
mhm,
back, connecting back into our heart space, into our bodies, and just being aware of what's going on right now, whatever it may be,
mhm, mhm,
and letting that
mhm,
intuition and that wisdom guide you versus just this ping
mhm,
pong action of I feel uncomfortable so I just need to go do something to fix that uncomfortable feeling, rather than just sitting with
yeah.
it and being curious about what that is. And then once we've worked through that,
Mhm,
making a choice from a wise place to take this next step, which is
yeah.
very, very different energy.
It is very different energy. And I think that even comes back to the topic of like, is this really reinventing yourself, or is through that process of
Yeah.
stillness and listening, is it coming back to self
Yeah.
and coming back to that authentic, true self that probably has always been there, but has learned through all the different phases of our lives. Like I tell my partner all the time, I'm like, I feel like I've lived 1,000 lives already.
That's for sure.
Right?
Yes.
I'm like, wow, like what, how am I, only at this place, like at this age, I feel like I've lived
Mm-hmm.
1,000 lives, but, really that reinventing self is coming back to hear what's really actually within you, which, sometimes that stillness is uncomfortable and people will avoid it, or sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that stillness is uncomfortable and people will go out there and chaotically try
Yeah.
to look externally for who they should be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting spectrum of how that stillness can be super uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But so important because
I think it's
yeah.
imperative.
And in
Mhm.
our world, I increasingly, and probably more so than we've ever been, I think we're just so disconnected from ourselves, right? Like we're on our
Yeah.
phones 24 hours a
Mhm.
day. Um, we are getting bombarded with news and drama and all. I mean, we are constantly externally focused,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
So I think we're
Constantly. Yeah.
so disconnected from, and even, and then you get into social media and the comparisons and who's doing what and who looks like what and all those things. And we lose that connection to what do I actually want? Not what is the world telling me I should want, but what do I want?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
coming back home to that can be really powerful for a lot of people.
Oh yeah. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's interesting how much clarity we can get after we sit through that discomfort of stillness and allow whatever to kind of come up. And I know like people talk about meditation and how it's just not for them. And I'm actually, with chronic ADD, like I'm definitely somebody who it takes a while for things, the chatter that doesn't matter, to kind of come and go,
Yeah. Hmm.
then be able to really access that stillness. But it is so important. So if somebody's listening right now, and or if they're watching and they're like, I don't even know where to begin in this process. I have this like, deep feeling, something resonating, that I'm just ready for this shift. I feel like I'm in here, but I'm not out in that world. How do they begin to take that first step today?
So I actually steal this from another coach that you and I both have spent some time watching. But she does a journaling exercise, sort of a meditation to a certain degree, about creating this vision of yourself, right?
Mhm.
For her, she does a more business and money stuff. So she talks about sort of the wealthy woman mindset. I talk a little bit more in my coaching about what does a healthy woman look like for you. But depending on what change you make, that could be defined differently. But I think it's really important to sit down quietly, take some
Mhm.
breaths, be in a space that feels good and comfortable, and just start to really, really visualize, who is this person 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, that I want to be. And I think it's bigger. And I have clients that really struggle with doing this, because they'll give me back this, like, well, she's 10 pounds lighter and she, um, makes a several $1,000s more per paycheck. And that's it.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I want you to go deeper. I want to know, in the morning when you first hit consciousness, like your eyes haven't even opened yet, you're just waking up in bed. What do you hear? What do you feel? What's going on around you? I
Mhm.
want you to get deep into, who is this person? Like,
Mhm.
what does her life look like? What, or she or he? I work primarily with women, so I always
Yeah.
say she, but he too. Um, what do I do when I get up? How am I feeling about that? What am I seeing? I mean, just a real vision of, if I embody
Mhm.
who it is I want to be, what does that look like? And I think from there, the goals come very easily, right?
Mhm.
Because now we've stepped in, we've felt it. And
Yeah.
now I can look at that and say, okay, well, the first step, or you work with someone, the first step to even inching towards that would be what? And then
Yeah.
we start moving from there. But I think, again, talking about that, like barreling forward, not even knowing where I'm going, I think that first step is, what is it that I am actually wanting? What does that look like
Mm.
from my own eye view, not from anybody else,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And then I think that starts to unfold very naturally from there.
So I think that's going to be a really good part too, is how to embody that that ideal authentic self, because I think that is such a difficult concept for
Oh,
people
yeah.
to grasp. But when you actually understand it and put it into just a bite-sized action, it does start unfolding very
Yeah.
easily. But
Yeah.
it's that first step. And again, like change actually manifests itself if we take that very inspired action consistently. So
Yeah.
maybe embodiment, like it's this one facet of that future self that you embody that day, that actually gets the ball rolling into that change. But it's this step,
Hmm.
but it feels like this when you don't understand it. So I
Yeah.
would love to bring you on to talk more about like mindful embodiment of that visualization of your future self. That's
Yeah.
actually
Yep.
kind of like that self's here today. It just doesn't know how to take that first step. So would that
Yeah.
be something you'd
That's,
be
yeah.
interested in coming on and helping
Sure.
explain the process?
Yeah. Let's do it. That'd be great.
Yeah. So is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners or viewers around reinventing yourself or coming back to your truest self? Anything else you'd like to
Um,
share?
I think what I have always taken from big changes, I mean, starting in college, clearly remember the day I went to college to be a teacher. And I clearly remember the day I had to call home and tell them that I don't know what I was thinking. I did not want to be a teacher. And we had gone through like a whole year of college at this point, and that was not what I wanted to do. And looking back on that moment, that felt like such a crisis, and like I could be completely upending my whole life and making the wrong decision. And I think now, being in my 40s and looking back and seeing multiples of those changes happen, you really, I mean, don't get me wrong, we can make mistakes, of course, but I don't think we ever really screw it up. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-mm.
there's always 95% of the time, if we've made a bad choice, it's fixable. So I think
Right. And it's part of our
sometimes,
lesson. It's part
what's
of our
that?
lesson. It's part of the lessons we're here to
Yes.
learn, right?
Yes.
It's part of the wisdom we're bringing. But I have to say, I don't think I ever knew that you went to school as an education major.
Sure did.
That is hilarious. I have to tell the listeners and the viewers, like Kristen and I met when I was in grad school over a common, thing that we were both interested in, and we met each other, and it was like, oh, hi, I'm Christine. I'm Kristen. Oh, I, enjoy this hobby. Oh, me too. Oh, I'm a psychologist. I was like, oh, I'm in grad school to become a therapist. It was the
Yeah.
funniest thing for us to kind of so now I know we both went into our undergrads as education majors too. I actually ended up
Yes.
teaching, but you're no.
No, I didn't make it out of undergrad. I didn't make it out of the first year before I
Yeah.
was like, this is not for me at all. But that was terrifying. It was
Yes.
terrifying to
Right.
be like,
So
oh my
even at
gosh.
that age,
Yeah.
yeah, like at that age, probably like 19 years old, 19, 20,
Yeah.
being like, how, this isn't right for me, but how do I securely change from here? And,
Yeah.
like I'm sure for you, you had a support system and
Yes.
understanding, family
Yeah.
members that like do it. But yeah, even at that point, feeling that stuckness and fear of failure or fear of what that's going to bring,
Hmm.
it's across the lifespan. So
Yeah. But I think
yeah.
it's important for us to remember that, like, it's life. Like, we're most of the time, we are not going to screw it up so royally that, like, we can't come
Hmm.
back from it. It's going to be okay,
Yeah.
most of
Yeah.
the time. I mean, yeah. So I just think sometimes that can be very comforting, I think.
Hmm.
And I wish that I had realized that back at 19, because I would have been
Yes.
significantly less stressed out that it's really
Hmm.
going to be okay. So I think that that's an important thing to carry with you if you are starting to think about making a change in
Yeah.
life.
And I think that as a collective, like we feel so much more seen and heard and witnessed by somebody who we know has had challenges that would look like a failure or would look like it was a huge mistake, but
Hmm.
navigated that to have wisdom. Like we kind of want to go to those places and those people that we know has had that experience of deep change. So
Yeah.
so they can witness us in theirs. So, I always say, the people who have had the failures and the mistakes and yet you see them in a place today, those are kind of the people that they understand something about that depth
Yeah.
and that's really their gift to share, with the
Yeah.
world. So
Hmm.
as you're in it yourself, knowing that, ooh, there's going to be something here that I'm going to be able to share with other people, and
Yeah.
not looking too much from a place of fear, but of learning and growth. So
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
yeah. Well, I am so excited to have you today. I know we're going to have a part two because as you were talking about that, I was like, you know what? That is such a concept we could break down and really help people understand how to do that because I know when I talk to clients about that, they're like, what do you mean? It's so far. But again, it comes from that stillness, right? It comes from
Yeah.
being in that stillness to hear it. So I'm so excited to have you on today. I have to tell you all, like in having Kristen in my life and just being able to talk to her about my own stuff, have time and spaces where we, kind of process through what's going on in our lives. She is just a wealth of knowledge, of understanding, of care, and she is just amazing to work with. So we're going to put all of her platforms that you can find her on. Any additional links that she would like to share will be down there in the bio and description. So thank you, Kristen, for joining us today and for sharing with us. We can't wait to have you back.
Of course, I loved being here. Thank you for having me, and I am looking forward to doing it again. And by the way, it is no surprise that you and I would talk and then get to a place where we have to talk more.
I know,
Because that is very us.
but then run out of time, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right, friends. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on
Sounds good.
Enterprise. Thank you.